And then, guys, we've been in a series now for the last couple weeks now. Love this one. It's called Face the Fear. And here's what we've been talking about in essence. We've been saying, hey, there's always these parts of life that come up that there are things that we know we need to act on. Often there may be conversations that we know we need to have. There are things that we kind of tend to avoid. We know that if we squared off with maybe that conversation or we made this decision, that maybe huge benefits would be drawn from that decision, but there's usually something that's stopping us from moving forward. Right? There's usually a barrier or some friction, and we'll get stuck, and sometimes that stuck will last months or years, sometimes stuck last decades. And one simple decision, one courageous decision that could be life-changing, could be God-honoring, won't happen because there's this kind of tension that gets created, and we just don't quite know how do we face the fear. How do we square off with something and tackle it when it's a little bit terrifying? So we've been talking about that for the last several weeks. And if you missed maybe the previous conversations, you want to catch up online, I'd encourage you to do that. You can go to our YouTube channel anytime, of course, and get caught up on this series or any other series that we would have and kind of track the story. And what we've been saying, though, is this. We said we're kind of taking several weeks to slow down and look at some of the dynamics around making decisions around fear and squaring off with fear. And we're looking at the story of David and Goliath and how that story unfolded and what are some of the kind of the elements around that story that we could relate to and we could draw principles from, and things like leaning into our uniqueness to square off with the fear. We talked about that last week. We've looked at a few different aspects of what this might look like in our own lives. And today what we're going to do is we look at kind of what we've been talking about is kind of this journey of kind of scaling the mountain, right? Looking at what God has asked me to do in obedience or squaring off with the fear in my life and getting to where we're trying to go in following God. And we said when we start to do that, what's going to happen, and we'll talk about this at length today, is we kind of know that if we took that step, that there's going to be people around us in our lives, and they're probably going to say some stuff. They're probably going to have a reaction, and that reaction's not always going to be positive. And if we were really, really honest about our decisions around fear, often it's the fear of those responses or reactions that actually freezes us and causes us to not move at all, right? There's a reality that we kind of live in a community or have relationships or friendships, or sometimes it's even family. And if we say, man, I'm going to step outside of what's normal in my friend group or my family or my situation, and I'm going to do something that may appear radical to the people that maybe I tend to live life with, I'm going to end up with some form of reaction from them. I'm going to get kind of barbs thrown at me or statements thrown at me, and I'm a little nervous about being rejected or having friction with this group, so maybe I just stay in kind of the comfort zone and what makes sense within that community or that group that I tend to live in. This is the conversation we want to look at. This happened to David. The same exact process happened to him. And we're going to look at his story as David and Goliath, right, square off with one another. And we're going to hear about what happened as he took this step. How did he handle interacting with the people in his life, right? And if you're just jumping in, here's kind of the boiled down quick version. Two armies squaring off with each other. Rather than them all fight each other, they both are saying, hey, how about we just have one guy fight one guy, and whoever wins in that one-on-one match wins the whole war is the context. David is a young guy, shepherd. He is not the guy that you would think would be the warrior that would square off with the big, giant warrior on the other team. But he shows up actually bringing food and checking in on his brothers. And he ends up being the unlikely hero and victor in the story. Here's where we're going to pick the story up here in 1 Samuel chapter 17. If you have your Bibles and you want to open up to that passage, you can do that. If you don't have a Bible, you can take one from underneath the chairs there, read it, use it today. You can take that home with you. If you don't have a Bible, we want you to have one. Take it. The people of Grace here give so that we can have the freedom to do that. So here's the story where we pick it up. It says, now the Israelites had been saying, do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt him from family taxes in Israel. Right? So this giant, Goliath, keeps coming out and he keeps taunting the people of Israel. Don't you guys have anybody to fight me? Come on. Right? Saying all kinds of things. And David shows up, and the Israelite, right, they're talking among themselves, and they say, hey, this is what is being offered to the person that fights Goliath. Great wealth's going to be given. The king will give him his daughter, no taxes. Like, pretty sweet deal, right? So David shows up, and he's like, hey, wait a minute. What's going on? What's being offered? And that's literally what he's asking here in the next section. David asked the men standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? So David's like, in one swoop, if I take this guy out, I remove the disgrace that is being thrown at God, the dishonor that this guy is aiming towards God. I'm going to get all of this stuff from the king. I get a wife. I got no taxes for life. How come nobody's done this? What am I missing, right? And he's like, I think for David, this is a no-brainer. He sees a vision that the people around him are not able to see. He sees that this is the thing that should happen, and nobody stepped up to the plate to do it. Now, when he starts to inquire about this, the people in his community start to hear his interest in it. His brother is one of them. Watch how the story unfolds. The men repeated to him what they had been saying to him and told him, this is what will be done for the man who kills him. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, here's what it says, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here? And with whom do you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are, how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. So Eliab kind of rails into David. David says, now what have I done? Said David. Can I even speak? Right, this classic like brothers interacting with each other. You can kind of imagine the scene. David's just asking some questions. Right? He hasn't done anything yet. We're kind of rewinding in the story a little bit if you've been traveling with us. He's just kind of asking what's going on. And his older brother looks at him, and right away, all of these barbs start getting thrown his way. You're conceited. He insults his role and his job. Where's those few little sheep that you do? You're nothing. You're a shepherd. You got nothing. Why aren't you back home doing the insignificant thing that you should be doing right now? I know how wicked you are. You're just curious. You just want to be down here and understand what's going on. And that's why you came down here. And so right away, David, even as he begins to step his toe into the journey, he immediately is faced with friction. And guys, I think this is just how it is. When we look to take steps towards what God is asking us to do, if you want to begin to move towards what God is doing in your heart and your life, you're going to run into this friction that we keep talking about. And it's something that we want to know about. We want to have our eyes open to it. We don't want to be caught off guard by it. We want to understand it's kind of just part of the equation. Here's what I said in your notes. I said, when you move towards growth, change, or obedience, you will be misunderstood. You need to expect it. You need to know that it's coming. Because what happens is often when we feel, man, I'm taking this big step, we kind of hope and expect, and it makes sense that we would, that the people closest to us would always be excited. Look at you. Yeah, you're doing it. You're doing the right thing. You're changing. You're growing. You're moving towards God. You're doing the right thing. And often, not always, but often, somebody in that circle doesn't respond positively. Instead, they go the other route, and they're actually a deterrent, pulling us away from what God has asked us to do. Right? It sounds something like this, right? If you look to begin to move forward in your growth in some way towards Christ. Maybe you say, hey, man, I want to get baptized. And you start sharing that with people. Somebody's probably, right, if you have a group of people that are not connected, you're probably going to find somebody that says, you're a church person now? You're getting baptized. What, you think you're better than other people? Oh, I see. You're going to start to get resistance. And you're going to church now. Maybe you stop drinking, or you stop using, or you stop sleeping around. Oh, you're too good for us now? When I start behaving outside of the norms of the group, it's almost inevitable that the group is going to bump into me and kind of try to pull me back into that norm. It's just kind of what happens over and over and over again. If you start moving towards growth, maybe you want to get counseling. And you look back and you say, man, I got some stuff in my life that I'm stuck on. And maybe you say, hey, I'm gonna try to get some help from some coaching for this. Well, people say, well, is something wrong with you? You think you're weak? Wait, what's your problem? You're right. Is it something? Are you guys in the middle of a disaster? Why would you go do that? I'm going to go celebrate recovery. Oh, do you have an issue? No, I just want to work on moving towards what God's asking me to do. And what will happen is there's a reaction. You think you're too good for us? You think that we're not, what we have here isn't good enough for you? And what inadvertently there is being said is this. This is what's normal and good for us. And when you move beyond that, it feels like rejection to the group. People in our family, we don't do things like that. We don't have jobs like that. We don't go to college. We don't go to trade. We don't move into different arenas. You'll hear things like, our family does it this way, our friend group is like that, and there'll be statements around what we are like, and you're trying to move into a place that is not what we look like. Here, you want to know what really is happening here. When we start to go down this road, what happens is this. When I keep going in my growth in faith and pursuit of Christ, what's happening is this. It's revealing as I keep taking steps forward where the other people around me stopped. When I keep going, it shows where those around me stopped. And as that gets illustrated, that is painful. And this is the reality of where David and Eliab, his brother, is. David wants to keep going. Eliab stopped. He stopped and said, I don't want in on that. All of them had the same opportunity presented to them. Only David is the one moving towards it. When I move forward, I'm going to run into misunderstanding, and I just need to know that that's coming. Here's some of the greatest dangers when I don't know that. One is I can feel deeply disillusioned if I expect people to always be with me and they're not going to be with me in some decisions. That can be disillusioning. The other thing that can happen is this. I might cave into the pressure of these words and not take the step because of the resistance of the people around me. Yeah, you're right. I don't really want to do that. Yeah, you're right. I'm going to keep doing what I've always done. And here's the thing. I just experienced this, and I bet you have too. The reality is that there are a handful of really big decisions or big moves that we could make that would be life-changing. And there's probably one or two people's voices or faces in your mind, and those voices or those faces and what those would look like if I took my step is the reason that we haven't moved yet. That's it. One or two, your best friend or your mom or your dad or your uncle or that person or your boss or you name it, somebody in your world, their potential reaction is the thing that has stopped you for weeks or months or even years from squaring off with the big move that God's asking you to make. David faced this. You and I face it. What do we do when we bump into it? Not so much if. Almost always there's going to be a when to this. What do I do when I bump into it? Here's what I want to do. I want to answer with wisdom. So I don't have to respond to every accusation that comes my way. Every barb that's sent at me doesn't deserve my reaction and my response. That I don't have to take the bait. I don't have to get sucked into the argument. I can look at the situation and know that where God is leading me is the right path, and that if I take that path, that over time, the path itself and the outcome of that decision is going to speak for itself. I can act with wisdom. I don't want to disqualify my decisions by losing my mind when somebody attacks me. And this is harder to do than it sounds, right? Because here's the thing, the people around you, they know you. They know exactly what buttons to push. It's intuitive. It's just a reality, right? They know that, man, if I say this, if I hit this button, you're probably going to lose it on this one, right? And so rather than lashing out, rather than blowing them up, rather than telling all the people about all the other people maybe in the circle about what so-and-so said and creating drama, what if I just looked and said, I'm going to approach this with wisdom. I'm going to take the high road. Look what the Proverbs say. Proverbs 19:11, a person's wisdom yields patience. It's to one's glory to overlook an offense. Most of the time, most of these things should just be overlooked. Most of the time. Rather than getting sucked into an argument, rather than creating drama, rather than looking back and saying, you're a dirtbag, right, for saying that, I should look and say, God, I'm going to forgive them. I'm going to move past that. I'm just going to keep focused on where you're going and where you're taking me. I'm going to take the next right step of faith. And here's the key. This patience thing is a big deal. That if you just let it play out for 2 or 3 years, you just do the counseling and move into the right direction. Wait 2 or 3 years and let what you have done and the decision, the direction that God has taken you, let that speak for itself. Embrace and move towards Christ and let that 2 or 3 years, 4 years later, let that speak for itself. Time has a way of vindicating all by itself when we move forward in wisdom. I don't have to come back and be defensive. I don't have to answer all of it, and I certainly don't want to attack back. Here's what I want to recognize, because I love the people in this circle, right? You love the people in your circle, and as you're looking to make the step out and move forward, here's going to be a truth that really makes a big impact and matters a ton. Here's how I said it in your notes. I said, you doing what God is asking you to do is the best shot you have at inspiring the people around you to do what God is asking them to do. You moving forward. It's literally the very best thing you could possibly do to love and to help and to inspire the people around you. Now, does that mean that they will always go if you go? No. That will not always happen. It's just the best shot you have. The best shot you have is looking forward and saying, I'm going to take the journey. I'm taking the journey towards what God's asking me to do. I'm moving towards obedience. I'm moving towards growth and change in Christ. I'm going that route. And if you want to come, I want you to come. And if you don't, it's okay. It's not I hate you. It's not you're a loser. It's okay. It's the best shot that we have to take people on the journey kind of with us, right? And you know how this has worked in your life, right? Sometimes we are the people in here. This is the ugly truth. Sometimes we're the people in the circle, and sometimes we're the ones saying the horrible things. So sometimes we're the ones throwing the barbs. Right, even before we go further, I need you to know this. Your pastor, right? If you come and you call Akron East home, your pastor for about half my life looked a whole lot more like this guy than this guy. I grew up as an atheist, and I literally attacked my friends who were followers of Jesus for their faith and for their faith decisions. I was that guy, right? It's not that these people in our worlds, in our lives, are our enemies. They're just not. They just haven't been moved yet to a place where God it has worked within them to call them into that journey of faith. But I would look and say, when I was here, people took great risks with me. They shared their faith with me. Friends did. I remember an incident where I walked in. This was right after I graduated high school. And I remember walking in with a group of friends. And I saw another friend of mine, and it was just him and another buddy. And I walked in, I think I had about six people with me. And we sat down at a table, and my friend, my other buddy, he was with one guy, and they were at the table right next to us. And I watched this guy who I knew was a Christ follower take the step to boldly share his faith with my entire group of 6 people. And I thought, you know what I thought? Dude, this guy's got guts. This guy just risked kind of social suicide. Right? He went forward and he just told his story about Jesus and how Jesus was changing his life, what he was so fired up about. And do you know what I did in the moment? Nothing. I didn't accept Jesus and my whole life was changed. Nobody else in the room did either. My other buddy who I ran into with his friend, he probably went home that night feeling like a loser. He did it, he was obedient, but there was no result. Let the story play out. Huge piece of what drew me to faith is watching people like my friend who shared his faith with me do that boldly. Without really worrying about the outcome. Without really worrying about what barbs might come at him if he talked about Jesus and moved, and he just knew that he needed to share his faith. When I thought about that, I walked away and I remember thinking as I went home and put my head on the pillow that night, I remember thinking, I can't believe he did that. I can't believe he went there. And it messed with me. It did. It messed with me. And you know what I thought? He must really believe it. He must really be in on that. That was his best shot at pulling me out of the circle. And guess what? Over some time, it worked. Here I am. Right? God used that to draw me into faith. I was inspired by his faith decision, even though he took heat for it. Guys, this is how God works. And here's what I got to do. If I'm going to be a child of God, if I'm going to be a follower of Jesus, what I need to know is I'm going to be in these situations over and over and over again. And what I need to do is I need to get comfortable being abnormal. I need to be comfortable being the person who doesn't always fit in the circle, who won't always do the thing that everybody else is doing, who's doing stuff that is weird to everybody else around him. And I got to start to get, this needs to start to be normal, and I need to be comfortable with the heat that comes with it. This is what David did. This is what Jesus did. This is what Paul did. This is all throughout the Bible. This is what the people of God do. If you follow Jesus and you follow Jesus' his call to approach certain pieces of life, the way that he calls us to approach them, you will get heat for those things. Oh, you're not living together before marriage? Are you seriously not having sex before marriage? Who does that? You're going to hear things, how much money do you give the church? Seriously? Don't you know those people just steal all your money or we just build buildings where people can know about Jesus? Right? Don't you know how much time do you give to sharing your faith? Why do you do what you do? You mean you actually like being married? Isn't it just ball and chain? What is going on here? If I look at what God is calling me to do, there's no way that I'm going to fit in all the time. There's just no way. It's not possible. It's never been possible. So I got to get comfortable being abnormal. I got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so what do I do when I'm very uncomfortable? I'm going to do what David did. And I've got to do it, and I've got to get in the habit of it, and he did it all the time. I got to learn how to run to God for protection. I got to learn to run to God for protection. David, all throughout the Psalms, would do this. He would run it. I'll give you a verse here in Psalm chapter 7, verse 1. He says, Lord my God, I take refuge in you. Save and deliver me from all who pursue me. David, throughout the Psalms, would say things like this over and over and over again because he recognized that God's not just trying to save him one time at a prayer of salvation that we had once, which is wonderful. God is saving him all the time in these kinds of situations. And so David would say things like this: God, you are my fortress, my strong tower, my hiding place, my refuge. Lord, you are my defender, my vindicator. Rise up, Lord, and defend me. Save me. And in desperation, what David did when he was opposed and when he was viewed and rejected and he looked like this, what he didn't do is he didn't do it perfectly, just like you and I won't. He didn't try to always fight back. What he did is he ran forward and said, I'm going to fix my eyes on the mountain before me. I'm going to run towards Christ. I'm going to cling to the Lord in the midst of my opposition. This is an instinct that is not natural for you and I. And we have to just begin to build that instinct. We have to begin to build the practice. What's instinctual is to allow ourselves to get sucked back into it, to cower, to fight back. What's not instinctual is to change the conversation completely. And it's not actually about the arrows, it's about continuing. Knowing that I can trust God to vindicate, that I can trust God to move a heart, that over some time, what vindication looks like is not proving people wrong, it's watching their hearts melt sometimes and them turn and join you on the journey. Not always, and I can't guarantee it, and we don't save anybody. And God does use his people to inspire faith and to draw faith out of others. When that turns, I can't tell you the number of times that people who have thrown these at me have come around later and said, I'm sorry, I didn't get it then. And guys, listen, I've been that guy in the largest way possible. Is making sense? When you are being attacked, I want you to see my face in your mind's eye and know that that person could be changed like I have been changed. That attacker their eyes could be opened the way God opened my eyes. These people are not your enemy, right? That's not the point. The point is, I got to face the fear and I got to trust the Lord. I got to keep moving towards what God's asking me to do. And there's probably a scenario where he uses my story to inspire others. It won't happen in every case, and that's okay. But this is what I'm asked to pursue. to pursue a life of faith and continue to move towards steps of faith. Say, Ryan, what do we do with this? How do we walk away? Here's some, I just want to give you some clear takeaways to be able to walk into this and through it. Here's going to be the first one. First thing is I want to filter the feedback. I want to filter the feedback. So, right, you're going to get feedback. You're going to get this stuff thrown at you. And here's what you have to filter through. Sometimes people say things to us that we don't want to hear. Listen. And we need to hear it because sometimes we misunderstand what the thing that we're trying to do is. And we need wise counsel to help redirect us. Every idea we have is not always a good idea. So the people that I truly trust who are seeking God, I need to, if they're trying to help me, even if it's very uncomfortable, I need to receive that feedback. So I want to ask the question, are they trying to help me or are they trying to harm me? If somebody's just has a low blow like Eliab, right? You're conceited, your heart is wicked, you're a scumbag, David, right? It's kind of where he was with him. He's just trying to hurt him. He's trying to tear him down. Then I can kind of get rid of that feedback. I can throw it away, and I can say, okay, I don't need to lean into it. Sometimes when people say things that I don't like, it's actually for my good, and I got to figure out which is which. Which is godly or wise counsel that I need to listen to or truth that I need to hear, and what is just trying to harm me. I got to work through that filtering process, and that sometimes is easier said than done. Here's the next one. I need to know that being misunderstood is part of facing the fear. In my guess, at least in my experience, my guess is for most of us, many of us, this is the part of facing the fear that stops us the most. I'm just scared of what my family is going to think or my friends are going to think. Or when I was making a decision to follow Jesus, that was the foremost thing on my mind. What are my people going to do and say when I take this step? If I know that's not always going to go the way that I want it to go, it's not always going to sound as approving as I want it to sound, then I can have a whole lot more comfort moving into the uncomfortable if I have the right expectations. Okay? I gotta get the right expectations on how these things work. Misunderstanding is nearly always a part of this journey. Here's the last one. It's critical. I've got to cling to God's approval of me. Because of what Jesus has done, and if you have put faith in him, his work on the cross, his victory over death and the resurrection, you have the approval of God. And if you're seeking him in his word, and what you're doing, chasing down faith, sounds like what the Bible talks about, and you're in the right ballpark, what you can know is the direction you're headed is generally going to be right. You want to get wise counsel, and you want to know more than anything that you can run to God for approval. Guys, listen. God is the only one who really totally understands. Even if you have a great friend or a great counselor, and I encourage you to try to have those. Even if you have a wonderful spouse or great relationship with parents or kids, and I encourage you to have this. Nobody totally gets the battle that you are in the middle of. They don't understand the unique, right? Nobody understands it like God does, the uniquenesses of how much pain it causes you to be in the situation that you're in. And the kind of wrestles and burdens and stresses that you carry as you walk through your life. Only the God of the universe totally gets that. And what's amazing is that God who totally knows you and understands you, even the very, very ugly things about you, even the cowardly part about you. That God, what he's longing to do is he's longing to meet you in the middle of your fear, in the middle of the walk up that mountain. What he's longing to do is he's saying, invite me into it. Let me strengthen you. Let me be your foundation and fortress. Don't listen to your critic. Listen to my voice. Take in what I'm speaking to you. Let me be your father in this moment. Let me be your shield and protect you. I'm longing to be in it with you, and you're just walking it alone. Bring me in. Cling to me. Cling to my voice when you feel insecure and afraid and alone and misunderstood. I am your God who sees all of this. And I want to be there to walk with you. And it's a huge part of the point of why we face the fear, is we learn to trust God in and through the process. As the band comes up, would you bow your heads and close your eyes and even now begin to admit that to the Lord? Just where you are, what you're carrying. And would you ask him for courage to move towards what he's calling you to do? Would you pray with me? Lord, thank you for being a God who knows absolutely all of it. Lord, the things that are heavy in our lives and the things that cause us to feel overwhelmed and anxious and nervous and insecure as we strive to try to find direction and approval. Lord, would you help us today to believe that when you look at us, what you see is your children. You see those who you have brought into your family, those who you're eager to forgive, those who you're longing to use. And Lord, you want us to find faith and courage far more than we want it. Lord, would you empower us towards that? Help us to reach out to you today, to move forward in what you're asking us to do, to be the kind of people that you've made us to be. Meet us here, Lord, even now.